Sunday's matchup between the Miami Dolphins and the New England Patriots isn't officially a must-win. But, let's be real, it kind of is, right? Sure, a loss wouldn't mathematically knock the Dolphins out of playoff contention, and if we're being technical, that's what a must-win really means. But there's so much riding on this game that, emotionally, it feels like one they just can't afford to drop. Look, being 1-4 doesn't completely shut the door on a playoff run, at least in theory. But none of the 16 teams that started 1-4 since the NFL adopted a 17-game season has made the playoffs. That's right, none, zero, nada. So, while the Dolphins wouldn't technically be out of it, they'd be walking a pretty steep uphill climb. Why would they even want to risk finding out just how hard that path is? Then there's the opponent, the New England Patriots. Right now, this is one of the weakest teams in the entire league. No one's mistaking them for a contender. In fact, they're in full-blown rebuild mode, with Jacoby Brissett starting at quarterback, a guy who's bounced around the league for years, now filling in because their top pick, Drake May, is clearly not ready. May's a promising talent, sure, but putting him behind that offensive line, one of the worst pass-protecting units in the NFL, wouldn't be doing him any favors. This is a Patriots team that's probably not winning many games in 2024, and it's not hard to see why. If the Dolphins fancy themselves playoff contenders, this is exactly the type of game they cannot afford to lose. They don't want to find themselves looking back at the end of the season, like the Bengals might be doing after their shock loss to New England in Week 1, and realize they threw away a win that could have easily been theirs. A loss here would be hard to swallow. The truth is, the Dolphins' season has already taken a few hits. Tua Tagovailoa's concussion threw everything into disarray, forcing Skylar Thompson and Tyler Snoop Huntley to take the reins, with neither of them managing to steady the ship. Then there's Jaelan Phillips, who's out for the year with a knee injury. It's been a tough stretch, no doubt. But here's the thing, it's not over. There's still time for the Dolphins to get things back on track. Of course, Tagovailoa's return remains a big question mark. His health is crucial, and the longer the uncertainty around him lingers, the harder it is to figure out what this team's ceiling really is. Could the Dolphins have been more prepared for a Tua injury? Maybe. But that's a conversation for another day. Right now, the focus is on what they can still do with the pieces they have left. Before the season even began, everyone knew the Dolphins needed a strong start. Why? Well, the last 6 games of the season looked brutal. But, as always in the NFL, things shift. The Jets' offense has been a mess. Christian McCaffrey is dealing with Achilles issues for San Francisco, Cleveland's Deshaun Watson has struggled, and the Texans, despite their off-season hype, haven't turned into the juggernaut some expected. So, maybe that tough final stretch won't be as nightmarish as it once looked. But none of that will matter if Miami can't take care of business now. The margin for error is shrinking. They need to put together wins, and quickly, if they're going to avoid a long, disappointing season. All this negativity you see floating around social media? It's not completely wrong. There's a real danger here of things spiraling out of control if the Dolphins stumble against the Patriots. It's not that this game will define their entire season, but it could easily set the tone for what comes next. There's plenty of time to turn things around, but losing to a team as down on their luck as New England would make it awfully hard to argue that Miami's season isn't on a downward slide. It's not that anyone's saying they have to win this game to keep their playoff hopes alive. But at the same time, can you really look at the bigger picture and think they'll be able to stay in the race if they can't handle a struggling Patriots team? Not a must-win, technically speaking, but emotionally, mentally, and every other sense. Yeah, it's absolutely a must-win.